Phil the MMA Dude, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 48, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing on this nice Sunday night? How you doing?
A little salty, my Raiders lost, but great night of fights last night. Happy to be back talking about them with you, Phil.
Oh, you're salty because the Raiders lost. You must be salty every single week of your entire life. Whoops. Oh, nope. Just kidding.
Just don't.
Okay.
Too soon.
Okay.
Soon.
So here's what's on tap today, folks. We are going to talk some MMA. First, we're going to open up with a UFC DC recap. Go over the amazing fights from last night, particularly the highly controversial ending to the main event against Alistair Overeem and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. After that, we are jumping up to the UFC 245 picks and predictions. Me and Fight Geek are going to break those down. I can't believe 245 is already just 1 week away. Then after that, it's my favorite section, listener questions and more. But let me start the episode off with this question for you, Fight Geek. The main event last night, Alistair Overeem versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik, had Rozenstruik winning with just 4 seconds left. Overeem was on his way to an easy decision win. Rozenstruik getting the controversial KO with 4 seconds left. Overeem getting back to his feet immediately after getting knocked down. So I have to ask, do you agree with the stoppage?
Oh, man, this was like the most MMA scenario ever that played out in this one. Insanity. In the moment, I will say that I 100% felt that Alistair should have been able to continue. He was right back up. He may have been flash knocked out as he was falling to his butt, but we've seen many fighters get more of a grace period than he was given in that situation. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, the damage to his lip was enough to stop the fight alone. But I disagree there, because then I would say that, Mike Perry's nose was enough to stop that fight alone in that situation. So, Robbie Lawler fought a whole 5th round with his lip tore similar, The fact that, was it a frightening, did he get dropped in frightening fashion? Of course. But if you watch it in real time, he bounces right back up. He's obviously not the most coherent, but if you are an avid watcher of the sport, you've seen many people get a longer leash than that. I think it was a rough night for Dan Mergliata, especially after, his conversation with Stefan Struve. And then this, I really felt like even though Rozenstruik landed that devastating punch, he turned around, walked off. Overeem was able to get to his feet. Whether you stumble to your corner or not is not an issue to me. TJ Dillashaw stumbled back to his corner before knocking out Cody Garbrandt in similar fashion. So, there's a million reasons why I think that fight should have gone on. Always in retrospect, Monday morning quarterback, we can go back and say, yeah, it was probably a good stoppage. But in the moment and in the heat of the competition, I felt like Overeem wasn't there enough to get through 4 seconds and get to his corner. That was just my opinion.
Okay, yeah, so I do have to respectfully disagree on this one. I think that Dan made a very tough call, but I think it was the right call. If I did go back and see it in slow motion, and it looks like Overeem is completely out as he's falling. And then I believe got woken up by the...
Well, how many guys are out on their way down and then come back? I don't think that's the most... Obviously, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's like the most bizarre, rare situation. Lots of guys get turned off for a split second, fall down to their knee or butt, come back, go for a single leg, and try to gain their wits about them. You know what I mean? We see that a lot.
No, absolutely. But I think there were a lot. Look, the truth is, it's a complicated situation. I think there were a lot of factors at play. I think Dan saw the lip. That added to it. Jairzinho also chose not to hit a follow-up punch, right? What would that have done?
But that's true, but he didn't. He turned and walked away. He was looking at the clock too. I'm assuming. I don't think. I haven't gone back and rewatched it, but watching it in the moment, I didn't feel like Rozenstruik thought he knocked him out.
Oh, I think he thought he had. No?
I think he felt like he landed a big shot and then was turning around to go back to his corner for the decision.
Okay. Yeah, it was a very odd scenario.
Wrong. It was like there was a lot going on there. To be honest with you, I had picked Overeem. He fought very similar to the way I thought he would fight. And I was just so worried that he was going to get caught with something that it felt inevitable. And then when it happened, it was just super disappointing to me personally.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where some of my feelings come from here. I feel like Overeem was the better fighter for 99.9% of that fight. So that's why it's so hard to see it pulled away from him like that.
Right. Absolutely. And so we know that Rosenstrike called out Francis Ngannou after, we can talk about that, but what I really wanted to ask you is, what do you think should be next for Alistair Overeem? Is it time to hang up the gloves?
Well, I mean, being a big Alistair Overeem fan, I know he will not hang up his gloves right now.
Yeah.
But, yes, I would, to be honest with you, he looked in great shape. Obviously, whenever you extend to 5 rounds with heavyweights, the cardio is going to be an issue, and finally he started to drop his arms just enough to get hit. I felt like his defense, his game plan, he implemented a couple takedowns, which I think he said he had 5 takedowns in 17 UFC fights, and 2 of them were last night. So I think you saw some positives from the Reem, but, Father Time is catching up to him. Jairzinho's much younger. Even though he was losing that fight, you always felt like he had a chance to land something heavy and, kind of claim the momentum. And it just happened to happen in the last 4 seconds. Just kind of a wild, crazy fight. Not sure I was overly impressed with Jairzinho. I think we all know that he can knock someone out. But he didn't show a whole lot, especially off of his back and in certain situations. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'll watch him versus Francis for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we kind of all know how that would go, and it wouldn't go well for Mr. Rosenstrike. But
yeah, I just don't know if he would have. I don't know. He's an interesting guy, but I'm not sure that Francis would want to go back that far. I know he's probably going to be 5 or 6 at this point.
Yeah, I don't see that fight happening next. I could be wrong, but I know that Ngannou really wants Volkov, right? He's been calling out Volkov hard, and that seems to make a little more sense at least. But we'll see.
Yeah, numerically for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So are we ready to move on then to the co-main event?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, so we can do this one quickly. Cynthia Calvillo and Marina Rodriguez went to war with a majority draw. Calvillo missing weight yet again, and I said on Twitter today, I've got pretty strong feelings about this, but Cynthia Calvillo, I was a big fan of hers when she was first coming up, but I'll just be honest, I can't stand her. I cannot stand her. I think she needs to either be cut or at the very, very least forced up to flyweight, because she keeps talking all this crap to strawweights. She's not making strawweight, and she doesn't care. She does not care. There's no serious punishment, so why should she even try?
So with the majority draw, they scored the 3rd round at 10-8 for Cynthia, correct?
No, I thought it was the first round that screwed everything up. Wasn't it Cynthia won the 3rd, Marina won the 2nd, and then the 1st was a disaster? You could be right.
Yeah. I had Marina winning the 1st for sure.
Okay. Okay.
So, I mean, who knows? I still thought Marina probably won that fight. I understand when she was underneath Cynthia had some good success. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of the draws at all. I think it's inconclusive.
Yeah, but what do you think? What? And I don't want to get actually too far into the weeds on this because we've got a great listener question. But with when someone misses weight over and over and over again, should there be significantly more punishment? Because Cynthia's getting essentially 0 punishment, by the way, for never making weight.
Well, this was 30% as opposed to 20%. So the percentage has actually gone up, right? Or is that just to do with how many pounds she missed?
I'm sorry, the percentage went up for what?
Well, I believe the last time she missed, it's 20% of your purse, right?
Oh.
This time it was, I believe this time was 30% of her purse. So I don't know if that was like a second strike percentage or if it's a percentage of the weight you miss. I'm not familiar with that. But 30% seemed pretty hefty for a fighter that I'm assuming doesn't make a lot of money.
Yeah, I would like to see her either cut. I think they need to either make an example of her with a cut, or at the very least force her up to flyweight.
My question is, how do they arbitrarily pick and choose who they force to move classes? Do you remember they forced Kelvin to go to 185?
Yes.
It was like non-negotiable for Kelvin, but we see these other people who miss weight, and it's kind of like they keep getting the opportunity. I'd like the UFC to step in more and be like, you know what? It's non-negotiable. You can't make that weight. you are going to the next weight class. It actually has helped Kelvin in essence, in my opinion, and it'll probably help some of the other people.
Yeah, the one thing that I will mention in Cynthia's defense, and I know I've just been going at her for 2 minutes, but in her defense, I have heard some women MMA fans say men and women cannot be treated exactly the same with missed weight because, women's bodies are a little bit more complicated in regards to, every 30 days, et cetera, and that can play a factor. And, the truth is, I don't know enough about it. Yeah, so I think it's fair. I don't know enough about that to question it. So I think that is a fair point to a degree.
Yeah, it's fair to a degree. I really don't know what you could do about that, but I 100% think that makes, weight cutting and stuff like that potentially harder.
Yeah.
I'm not in a position, so I don't know.
Yeah, so in conclusion, I would like to see Cynthia, at the very least, politely forced up to flyweight, because she keeps having all these strawweights names in her mouth, and she doesn't fight at strawweight. So I would like to see.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, moving on to Stefan Struve versus Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell getting the TKO via punches with just 3 seconds left in round number 2.
This made me sick.
Yeah.
I mean, this fight,
goodness. Yeah, go. Why don't you start?
What do you even do? I mean, Stefan Struve, battling, back, trying to, salvage his career. I obviously understand he was circling out to the right, and it just happened to be in perfect kicking range of Rothwell's left kick. So I don't think it was intentional or deliberate.
It happened more than once. This was twice.
Well, it did because they kept throwing the same combination of left body kick as Struve was circling out to the right. So that was not a great combination, especially when Struve is so tall. You're aiming for his body. Rothwell's shorter, so he's just generally kicking square in that vicinity. It was really horrible. I was, I couldn't have been more impressed. We've seen 100 instances of these fighters who get fouled and then they're over there in the corner and they don't take their 5 minutes, or they panic, or they freak out, or the commission ruins it. So I was really happy to see Struve get his 5 minutes and really show that he was a warrior and try to fight through it, and then even come out of the corner twice after taking his 5 minutes. I think Dan Miragliotta's input is unfair for him. He's in there trying to worry about his health and his career, and Dan Miragliotta says, I think you're winning the fight by 2 rounds or something. What that does is that gives him an extra element to consider, which I think he should have just been considering his health at that point. Not positive that played into the finish either. Struve has always had a bad tendency of getting backed up against the cage and eating heavy shots, which is eventually how he lost. So just a big, pot of, MMA mess all in one fight. Super disappointed for Struve, and don't really feel all that happy for Rothwell, if I'm being honest.
No, not at all. I mean, I was disgusted with Rothwell, and I don't even care if it was by accident. Twice in a row, you gotta. It's not. I don't know. I would have liked to see him being disqualified, frankly, because those were both
DQ,
so bad.
No contest. I would say on the second one. I know it wasn't through the second round. I don't believe.
Right, it was not.
So it couldn't have been a DQ win, but that's something I'd like to see changed.
Yep.
If you continually foul, I don't care what point in the fight it is, you should be able to receive a DQ loss for repetitive, similar fouls, in my opinion.
Yep, and so you do feel that Dan Miragliotta? Let me ask this: do you think that Dan Miragliotta should face some kind of disciplinary action for what he said to Struve? Some people said he was coaching Struve.
I don't know if he was coaching him, but I just don't think his input regarding the score of the fight is in any way something he should be translating in that moment. He should translate how much time is left, whether or not the doctor's coming in, if he's going to be deducting a point, things like that. He should not be talking about the score of the fight and what he thinks to the fighter who is obviously lost in the moment, been kicked in the groin in the middle of a fist fight. That's not fair to add that level of, comprehension on Struve's part, because maybe that is the deciding factor that made Struve get up from a second groin shot and say, well, I'm winning this fight 2 rounds and, hypothetically, and then he goes out there and he gets finished when he's not physically able to defend himself. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that's the reason what he said was problematic, in my opinion. I don't know if you can really sanction him. Just not a good look, in my opinion, at all. If I was Struve's team, I would be incredibly upset with him.
Yep. I have to agree there. I think it was just, really an odd series of events overall in the main card. And we're not.
I mean, Dan Miragliotta seems to be a little too emotionally invested. Do you remember when he pushed MVP? After a fight because he was taunting too much.
I had no problem with that. MVP was behaving like a clown.
He seems to be in these kind of, a referee needs to be professional and not have any biases or emotional attachments one way or another, or interest one way or another. We need someone who's calm in just judging the action. I feel like he's shown us many times that he's getting lost in one narrative or the other within the fight, and that could be a problematic, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to what you can probably guess was my favorite fight of the night. Aspen Ladd coming back from the brink of defeat. Everyone was tweeting me, it's not looking so good for your girl Aspen. Well, guess what, haters? She turns it around. She gets the stop with 33 seconds into round number 3 against Yana Kunitsakaya. She'd been losing the fight, and people were complaining about her very loud primal screams of rage. Guys, get over it. Aspen is a future champ. Let's go, baby. Let's go! No, too much?
Okay. Hey, it was an impressive... Again, you don't see female fighters land devastatingly heavy shots like that, so I think that goes to show you the kind of potential she does have. I don't think she looked great the whole fight. I think, Yana showed a lot of technique advantages and kind of had the fight where she wanted it for the majority. But I think you saw what makes Aspen an elite prospect. She's very powerful. And, even the combination she put together was crude, but it landed. And it just shows you how powerful she is. So that's what she has going for her. I'm not sure that I'm sold on her being a future title holder, but definitely big bounce back for her.
Okay.
What?
Yana's that was a tough matchup the second assault.
She is tough. Yana's experienced. She's tall. She's, got a good technique. She's been in there versus scary opponents before, so she wasn't going to be afraid. But I just think that she's not nearly as powerful as Aspen Ladd.
Yeah, and everyone, if you don't know, you can probably tell now, I'm a little bit of a biased Aspen Ladd fan. I may or may not be in love with her. So I was quite happy with that outcome. But people need to calm down about her primal vocal screams of rage as she's punching. I think it's badass. Am I the only one?
Well, I think that, that fight was mundane, to say the least. So I think that was one of the highlights of the early rounds, right?
Wait, mundane? The fight was mundane? That stoppage was mundane?
Well, the first 2 rounds, wasn't it more like up against the fence, clinching, and positional? Yeah. It wasn't exactly the most exciting fight on the card, so I think what people had to pull from it were those, if we're calling them I think they were more kias than anything. But.
Yeah, definitely agree. And then really quickly, the last fight on the main card ended in another majority draw. That was Cody Stamann versus Song Yadong, and I'd love to hear how you scored it. I really thought that Cody won that. I get it. He's very unlikable, so I think people were very easy to accept the draw. No one likes to see Cody Stamann win, but I'm sorry. That was not the correct judging. I really thought Cody won.
Well, I picked Song Yadong, so I was okay with the draw.
Fair.
But I definitely thought Stamann took 2 out of 3 rounds. I believe it was the second and third round off the top of my head.
Oh, Stamann, excuse me. I think I was saying Stamann. Stamann, yeah.
Yeah, Stamann. So Song Yadong came out, looked good. I think we saw a little bit of a gas tank issue with him late, and I think that Stamann beat
I don't know which one it is. I've heard both.
With the gas tank, I think that Yadong started to fade, and that was really the difference in that fight. Both those guys are pretty evenly matched, so it was, actually much more evenly matched than I had anticipated. So it was a pretty impressive performance by Stamann. So it sucks to see him get a draw instead of a win, but I don't know. That's one I'd actually be okay to run back. I'm not big on immediate rematches, but I think that I could probably watch those guys fight again.
Oh, 100%. I would definitely like to see that one run back for the record. Okay, so that's it for the main card. Obviously, Rob Font had a big win against Ricky Simone. Call out other fights you'd like to quickly discuss. We've got to wrap this card up. Bryce Mitchell.
Tim Means versus Alves.
Yep.
I mean, Tim Means, the Dirty Bird, coming back. I think he broke his ankle last year in a knockout loss to Nico Price. So big comeback for him, and he put together a nice finishing combination.
I was going to say, Alves had a tough loss. Yep, Bryce Mitchell, go ahead.
Second twister submission in UFC history. Bryce Mitchell is a tricky guy, country boy, tough, interesting prospect to say the least.
Yeah, and this is a side note, but when I was watching that twister, I've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about 3 years now, almost 4, and I'll be honest, I was watching that, I said, what the hell what is that? What is that? And
I thought it was more of like a neck crank at first before I saw him kind of get the body in there.
Yeah, that was a crazy submission, and I have no idea how to do that, and I've been practicing BJJ for years, so that just tells you how intricate it is.
What do you want to see for Bryce Mitchell next? That's a couple impressive performances back-to-back for him.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Man, who do I want to see next?
And we all know what happened to Bryce before winning these 2 fights, right?
Oh, didn't he have that? The horrendous injury. That are we really going to talk about it? Is that right?
I'm just saying that just goes to show you how tough that kid is. Goodness gracious, that is a tough SOB right there.
Yeah. So okay, I'm looking at very true. I'm looking at the featherweight rankings here. Do you have someone in mind for Bryce? Is someone jumping out at you? What about Ryan Hall?
Oof. I don't think Ryan Hall wants to go back that far. Arnold
Allen.
Tough one, right? That division. What about where's Violent Bob Ross fighting these days? Is he a lightweight or featherweight?
That's an excellent question. I believe that the answer is, I want to say, oh man, he jumps between them, doesn't he? He's definitely unranked in both.
Violent Bob Ross versus Bryce Mitchell at this point sounds interesting to me.
I like that fight a lot.
We may have seen it before. Do you have Bryce's information pulled up right there?
Oh man, you're putting me on blast with the Bryce Mitchell shit. Okay. That's a mean guy to put me on blast with, bro. Okay, all right. Yeah. I've been trying to secretly get to that while we were speaking. No. So he's never fought Violent Bob Ross.
Perfect. That's a matchup to see.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, he has not. He's absolutely not fought him. So yeah, I like that fight. Let's do that one next, I say.
All right, cool. I got some other real quick ones. Yep. What did you think of Joe Solecki versus Matt Wyman? Any thoughts?
Ooh, Solecki with a very impressive win against Matt Wyman. Definitely unanimous decision. I was impressed with it. I wasn't blown away by the way. I was not blown away by this fight, but I liked Solecki and I thought he looked good. What did you think?
I have honestly, I don't like to be hard on guys, but Matt Wyman has not looked UFC caliber in his last 2 fights. So I'm not really sure what we can pull from that, but yeah, it's a name, or it's a win.
I think that Wyman's got, I think what we take with this is that it's time for Wyman to get cut. Is that too harsh? I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, did he win a minute of that fight or the fight prior?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, he's been in there for, I believe, 6 rounds since he's came back, and I don't think he's won a minute. So I don't see him being competitive moving forward.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It's strange to me, again, how the UFC, how certain guys can't give fights, but then a Matt Wyman gets 2 fights in 4 months or 6 months or something.
Right. Totally
Francis Ngannou can't get a fight, and he's one of the biggest stars on the roster.
Right.
But Matt Wyman's getting booked every other weekend. No,
people are scared of Francis Ngannou, and they're not scared of Matt Wyman.
That, but yeah, I get that.
I hear what you're saying.
It's just funny you see some people popping up so frequently, and then there's some guys you never see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nico Price can't get a fight right now. It doesn't sound like.
And that doesn't surprise me because he's not high enough ranked and he's very dangerous.
Exactly.
Okay, so are we ready to move on then?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it is now time for the UFC 245 picks from me and the Fight Geek. I can't believe it's already here. I feel like it hasn't been pushed that hard, right? For a pay-per-view, a year-ending pay-per-view. How do you feel, Fight Geek? I feel like this pay-per-view snuck up.
Yeah, not only has the promotion been quiet, but the key figures have been quiet. So I'm really expecting come tomorrow, I hope all these people bring the heat because this fight card is unbelievable top to bottom. So I guess we don't need all the BS, but I'm just a little surprised how quiet it has been.
Absolutely. So let's start off with the main event. Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington is a serious, perhaps the ultimate grudge match. These two do not like each other, and they're going for the welterweight belt. Who do you got?
Oh, man. Razor thin. I could make a case either way, but I am going to take Kamaru Usman. I believe he's a little bigger, stronger, faster than Colby. Colby may have a little better pace, but I'm just going on a flyer here. I'm taking Kamaru Usman.
Via decision?
Yeah, let's say 48-47 Kamaru.
All right. Unanimous decision, 48-47 across the board. I like it.
But Kamaru dominating early and Colby picking up the pace late, but not quite doing enough.
Got it.
That's if I had to make a formal prediction.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, this fight, I'll be honest, I've said this many times, I don't like either fighter, so I don't have a horse in this race, which is actually kind of nice for the first time in a while. I don't remember the last time that there was a big title fight where I was so emotionally indifferent to both the champion and the contender in a long while. In fact, perhaps almost ever. So that's allowed me to really kind of take this apart without any sort of biases. And like you said, razor thin, I completely agree. I think it's almost a coin toss. But what I ultimately see happening is Usman starting strong, just like you said. But here's the thing. I think Usman's put a ton of pressure on himself. I think those big muscles are going to start wearing down on his energy. I know that Kamaru has a great gas tank, but we've never seen it pushed by someone with Colby Covington's pace. I have Colby Covington and new by unanimous decision, 48-47 for Covington.
Wow. It's going to be close, man. I can't wait to see that one. I hope they're able to give us some intrigue. You know what I mean? I think it's very intriguing on paper, so I hope it plays out that way in the cage.
Absolutely. So let's move to the co-main event, which is arguably should have been the headliner, in my opinion. The featherweight title fight between champion Max Holloway.
I'd say Max is more well-known than both of the main eventers and has more title defenses, so I could agree with you there.
Well, Usman has a whopping 0 title defenses, so not easy.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but so Max Holloway versus Alexander the Great Volkanovski. What a wild fight this is going to be. And, who you got?
Yeah, let's just keep it short and simple. Was talking about Max a couple weeks ago. Still leaning Max. I think Max again. What is he? 27. He's been around forever, but he's still getting better. He's still learning. He came back from the Poirier loss and looked great. I'm expecting him to look great here. Big fan of Volkanovski, but I think this is one of those fights where Max is going to have a very high volume, get comfortable, implement his game plan, which we've seen many times. And I'm taking Max via 5th round TKO.
Woo! I like it. Okay, so you see him stopping Volk. All right, a little fun here.
Yeah, I think that pace is going to be a little bit much, but I could be wrong.
Okay. So this is a great fight, guys. Volk is not to be underestimated. I think a lot of people are underestimating him. Not saying you are, Fight Geek, but Volk is not to be underestimated. He's very much a live dog, but I do have to agree with you that Holloway is going to just be a little bit too much class for Alexander Volkanovski. I have Holloway winning a very close split decision to retain his featherweight belt. So I'm taking Holloway.
Let's get hypothetical here.
Yep.
What would be next for Max after that?
I don't know. There's plenty of featherweights in the pipeline, but I know he's spoken out about wanting to.
We'll get to like the Edgar and Korean Zombie and all that stuff soon enough, but I think that all plays into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be very fascinating. But look, before we get all into what's next for Max, he's got to worry about Volk.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a big one. There's so many intriguing fights out there.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to see what happens with Holloway Volkanovski because, like I said, Volk could pull the upset here for sure. So moving on to the third title fight of the night. I can't believe there's a 3 title fight card in a week. Women's bantamweight Amanda Nunes, the champion, versus Germaine de Randamie in a rematch many years in the making. Another very dangerous live dog in Germaine de Randamie, in my opinion, against Amanda Nunes. And if I may be so bold as to make the first prediction here on this fight, I have Amanda Nunes winning this one by 4th round knockout.
Really? Okay. Very interesting. I see this fight going a lot like the Cyborg fight. I think they're going to meet in the middle early. I think they're going to throw down. It's so hard to decide, who's the better striker in that first round. But I do believe Nunes will come out more aggressive, win the early rounds. I think it'll be back and forth firefight early. I think Nunes will tire late. I think the GDR will win a round or 2 late. I'm taking Nunes by a tighter decision than people think. I'm going to go 48-47 Nunes.
Wow. Okay. I like it. So moving on then to the bantamweight fight between Magic Marlon Moraes, making his return after following his defeat to Henry Cejudo at UFC 238, versus Jose Aldo, who is making his bantamweight debut. He looks like the weight cut has been very rough for Aldo. Who do you got in this fight?
Yeah, I can't take Aldo with what we've seen. No matter what you think of Aldo's skill set, his legacy, obviously one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time elite fighters to ever do it.
Oh, yeah.
But he looks like he's literally losing muscle mass. His veins are popping out. His face looks like a skeleton. He really does not look healthy. I heard he was eating up to, 2 pounds of salad per day just to survive through training.
That doesn't sound healthy.
These don't sound like the best ways to prepare your body for someone who's a fast twitch athlete in his prime, like a Marlon Moraes, who's very dangerous, is very comfortable at 135. That's his natural weight class. His body operates naturally there. Could Aldo come? The thing about Aldo coming down is you would think he would have, the leg kicks and the power and be the bigger man. But I'm afraid with all the weight he's had to lose that he will probably not have the same sting in his strikes than he would at 145, his natural weight. With that being said, I just can't see him. I just can't see a path to victory for him here. I could be wrong, but I'm going to take Marlon Moraes by 2nd round knockout.
Okay, yeah, that's friendly of you. I'm taking Marlon Moraes by 1st round knockout, and I feel like if Aldo makes it through the first 5 minutes, I'll be impressed, honestly.
But this has nothing to do with Aldo's skill set. It 100% has to do with what he's doing to his body to take this fight, in my opinion.
Sure, but look, we can't go making excuses for Jose Aldo. No one forced him at gunpoint to do this.
But I'm not saying he's going to get knocked out because he doesn't have the skill set of a Marlon Moraes. I'm just saying physically they're not going to be in the same place that night, in my opinion.
Yeah, and skill set is often not the only factor in these things.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely agree there. Would be shocked if Aldo somehow wins that, but then the final fight on the main card, Peter Yan versus Uriah Faber. So Faber got me into this sport for those that don't know, so I'm very biased here. But I truly do believe, I try to separate my bias for these picks. Guys, I think Faber is going to pull off a split decision upset. Am I crazy, Fight Geek? Tell me I'm crazy.
You are crazy. He's going to have it's going to be Peter Yan, unanimous decision, 49-46.
What?
Too much variety, too much youth. Peter Yan's a much better, striker and much better defensively than a Ricky Simone. Even though I was impressed with Ricky Simone really has a crude, younger skill set. Peter Yan is much more seasoned when it comes to his striking. I think he's going to give Uriah problems on the feet. Uriah's toughness will last to the bell. But sorry, I said 49-46. I meant 39-38. So. Or no, 29-28. What am I talking about? 29-28. I think that Jan's going to win 2 out of 3 rounds.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay, very fair.
I wasn't a math major. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Neither was I. All right, moving on to the prelims. Real quick, let's go through these quickly. Jeff Neal versus Mike Perry. I think Jeff Neal's going to get this done, and I feel bad because I love Mike Perry, but it feels like such a bad matchup for him. What do you think?
100% horrible matchup. Mike Perry's one of the slower 170-pounders. Jeff Neal's lightning fast. I just can't see this working out well for Mike. Mike's too tough for his own good, so he might take a beating.
Yeah, absolutely. Caitlin Vieira versus Irene Aldana, women's bantamweight fight. Who you got?
Tough one. I like Aldana on the feet, but Caitlin Vieira, I think, is going to take this one via submission.
I agree with you. I'm saying 3rd round submission from Caitlin Vieira. Now, middleweight, Omari Akhmedov versus Ian Heinisch. Kind of an underrated fight, actually. Who you got there?
Going to take Ian Heinisch. I liked what I've seen from Ian Heinisch. He's had a little bit of mixed results, but he's fighting tough guys. Seems to have a game plan he sticks to, so I'm going to take Ian Heinisch.
I'm taking Akhmedov, but we're going to see. It's going to be a close one. Welterweight, Matt Brown versus Ben Saunders. What are you thinking?
OG fight.
Yep.
Matt Brown by KO.
Ooh, I thought I was being gutsy with that. I have the same pick, Matt Brown with KO.
Ben Saunders has a tendency to get KO'd, and
hey,
Matt Brown's still the immortal, even though he's aging and he's a little out of the limelight and kind of not really on the regular schedule. He's still a dangerous guy. I think his last fight was where he gave those big old elbows to Diego, right?
I believe so. Okay.
So that's a perfect kind of fight for Matt Brown.
Agreed. Okay, early prelims, real fast. Featherweight, Chase Hooper versus Daniel Timur. I've got Daniel Timur in this. What about you?
Yeah, I know Chase Hooper is the hot prospect, but I'm taking Daniel Timur. Just think he's more seasoned and just a little better.
Agreed. Flyweight. Now, this is a fun fight, and I can't believe it's so far down on the card. Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara France. That's a fun fight. Why is it so low on the card?
Great fight. Because this card is so good.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to go with one of my personal favorites, Brandon Moreno here. Love the way he fights. Love how he brings it. Kai Kara France is much more technical fighter. Probably the stronger fighter, but I think Moreno has a little more variety to him. I'm going to take Moreno by split decision.
Ooh, I also see this going a split decision, but I have it going the other way for Kai Kara France via split decision, and he is one of my favorite upcoming flyweights, so it's funny you mentioned Moreno being one of your favorites, so it looks like our 2 favorite up-and-coming flyweights are going to be going head-to-head there. I can't wait for that fight. I think it's going to be awesome. I got Kara France by split decision. And then 2 more fights left. Jessica Ai versus Vivian Araujo. Am I screwing that up? Probably.
I think it's Araujo.
Okay, thanks. I'm going all hardcore with the accent. And
but that's a sneaky good fight between 2 female fighters who like to strike. Looking forward to that one. I'm taking Vivian Araujo to get a big name win via unanimous decision.
Really? Okay, I got Jessica Ai taking this
thing.
The
tables have turned. Now you're picking Jessica.
Now I'm picking Jessica I. And I think
your favorite fighter.
My favorite fighter in the whole wide world. And she loves me. She's always like, where's the MMA dude? Where's the MMA dude? He's my favorite. He's my favorite. But no, I got Jessica I winning this thing via unanimous decision. So last fight on the card, middleweight. Oh my goodness. Punahel Soriano. Oh gosh. Versus Oscar Pichota. Who you got?
I'm taking Oscar.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that.
I'm taking Oscar as well, and bless his wonderful parents for a truly awesome spelling of Oscar. They did a great job. Okay, so with that, we're going to take a quick break and be right back with listener questions. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 48, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, and it is now time for my favorite section of the show, Listener Questions! Thank you.
Do it.
Thank you. All right, let's do it. Let's jump right into them. Guys, there were some excellent questions this week. Maybe it was because we took the last week off, had one of our rare breaks, but they really brought the fire this time. Do you have one ready to go, or should I go?
Sure, got one all queued up from Quinn, right here, show regular
Quinn.
He says, how should we treat weight cutting? Should we add more weight classes or make it mandatory for fighters to fight at their standard weight? Let's take Aldo, for example. No commission should let him cut weight to 135. Hashtag AskSplitPod. Go ahead. You got any thoughts on the weight cutting?
Yeah, Quinn, you're 100% correct. Something has got to be done about the weight cutting. This is why I didn't want to get too far into the weeds with the Cynthia Calvillo discussion earlier because of this excellent question, Quinn. And I think that what you do is, at the very least, you have got to have the fighter lose a point to start the fight. Some will say that's too severe. Guess what? You've got to make weight. You have got to be a professional. Especially, I think it should be at the very least, Fight Geek, it's got to be mandatory that you lose a point going into the fight if it happens twice in a row. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I can commit to that. I don't like the idea of taking points in competition away from things that are happening pre-fight. Once you step into the cage, that's a different thing. So, it's really hard for me to get there. I think there should be more, I think along the boxing lines where there's multiple weigh-ins. I think California is doing this now where you have to stay within a certain weight range. I mean, this is all money out of the UFC's pocket to try and, regulate these things and coordinate these things, so it's probably far-fetched, but I really think that it comes down to the UFC and Bellator and them protecting their asset and their assets by, more strictly regulating this stuff. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think it's a tricky situation, and I understand why you're saying, I don't like to, interfere with the fight outcome, with taking away points. I get that, Fight Geek, but where I'm coming from is saying there's got to be a very severe punishment to scare people from not taking a weight cut seriously. Yeah,
I agree. It's annoying to say the least as a fan, and it sucks for the fighters because
right.
They're not getting the fair shake whenever they're fighting someone who's, overweight or whatever.
And then if you don't want to take the fight, you're viewed as, you ruined it, Well,
and a lot of people like Marina Rodriguez, let's take, for instance, I don't know what her show and win is, but she's probably not making $100,000, Right. So for her, to come and be like, no, I'm not fighting now, that means she doesn't get her win money, which means she may have flown to the U.S. and done all this stuff for $20,000. She's got to pay her her team, her travel expenses. They only get to do this 3 times a year, 4 times a year if they're elite. So, you have to figure out how to make money as a professional. So it puts them in a bad situation having to say yay or nay to a fighter who missed weight.
Absolutely. Okay, so this next question comes from a wonderful show regular, Ali Ra. That's at Leg Sweep MMA. Ali Ra, what up, son? And he says, was it a mistake to book Frankie Edgar against the Korean Zombie weeks before Edgar's bantamweight bout with Corey Sandhagen? I'll let you start this one off, Fight Geek.
Absolutely. There's plenty of featherweights that could have taken that fight versus the Korean Zombie that makes sense.
Calvin Kattar.
Yeah. Frankie Edgar was booked at 135 versus a contender after making an announcement that he was going to go down, I have a hard time believing this is anything other than Ali just getting his way again with the UFC. It's annoying to say the least. We've determined where Frankie Edgar lies in the featherweight class. The Korean Zombie's on the verge of a title shot, in my opinion. So a win over Frankie Edgar, while good in name value, does he get a title shot based off that?
He should. He absolutely should, because I don't want to get on a tangent here. Brian Ortega says he's got a torn MCL or an ACL. I'd like to see those x-rays because I don't believe him. Sorry, guys. I don't believe Ortega.
You're so wild. Why would he lie?
He has ducked Korean Zombie all year. He will do anything not to fight him. Anything. He's so desperate to not fight Zombie, and I don't appreciate it. Time to fight. Ortega hasn't fought in over a year. Time to get him unranked. If you don't fight in 13 months, you shouldn't be ranked. It's disgusting. I want to see the x-rays.
I don't know about all that. But
send me the x-rays, Brian. I don't believe you.
I don't understand why they book Frankie Edgar versus Sandhagen and then allow him to leave that booking to take the other fight when there's plenty of guys to slot there.
Yeah,
that's just what it does. It just doesn't make sense to me. Even something like a rematch with Yair would make more sense, but obviously Yair's not going to take a fight on that kind of notice.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was completely shocked that Edgar versus Sandhagen wasn't. I had assumed it was canceled when I heard that Edgar was fighting Zombie. I thought it was just canceled.
Well, we know that fight's 99.9% not going to take place.
Well, do we? It's Frankie Edgar. If anyone's going to insist on, fulfilling his obligations, it's him.
Yeah, is he going to be able to come out of that Korean Zombie fight completely unscathed?
No, what do you mean? He's going to be knocked out in the first 2 rounds. But
I don't know about all that, but okay.
Oh, you got Edgar? Wait. You got Edgar beating Zombie?
No, I don't. Well, we haven't. We're not there yet.
All right.
I certainly wouldn't favor Edgar, but I don't think he's getting knocked out.
All right. Okay.
All right, let's keep it moving. You got another one?
Yeah, this is from another great show regular. This is at KevC918. Kev, what up? He says, if Ben Askren had joined the UFC in 2013 like he was supposed to, would he have become champion quickly? Do you think he would have been outclassed by guys like Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald, and Johnny Hendricks? Or do you think he would have become champion? Thanks a lot. Keep up the great work, guys. Great question. I want to take this one because I think it would have went very similar to the way it went. I personally believe that era of welterweight is better than this era of welterweight. So, whoa. Yeah. Okay. I think a prime Robbie Lawler destroys a prime Ben Askren. I think a prime, Johnny Hendricks, this is pre-USADA 2013. Yeah. So I think all these guys beat Ben Askren, to be honest with you. So, yeah. I think Ben Askren is, probably would lose to a guy like a prime Josh Koscheck. So, I don't know. That's just my opinion. Koscheck. All right, let's not go. What are you on a time machine going back to the dinosaur ages? Wrestling. Well, I'm just saying, Koscheck was a title challenger in that era. Wait, was he in 2013? Maybe not 2013. He challenged George maybe through 2 or 3 years before that. Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm just saying, in that era of elite welterweight, Josh Koscheck was considered elite for a while. So was guys like, a Carlos Condit may have had problems with a Ben Askren because he was so comfortable on his back. Ben may have beat him via decision. I don't think
Ben Askren would have beat Nick Diaz in his prime. I think Nick was too good on the feet and then too good off his back.
I have to agree.
I think George is better at everything than Ben. Even MMA wrestling, which Ben is noted for. I think Ben would have been a top 10 guy, but I do not think he would have ever held a belt in the UFC.
I have to agree with you. I think he definitely would have been top 10, possibly even top 5 for a minute. But no, I think it would have gone similarly to his actual UFC run. I do not think he would have gotten the belt.
Cool. All right, let's keep it moving. I got one here from Jokers LLC, and this is a tough one, so you're going to have to help me with this one.
Okay, Jokers, what up?
He said, I thought the UFC 245 promo they played at UFC DC was very well done. What's your favorite promo for a fight or card that you got really pumped up for? Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, and I think I wrote this might be my favorite question in the Split Decision podcast history because I loved it so much. Yep, I've got a few, but let me start with the number one favorite. To me, there's no comparison. Nothing will ever beat UFC 214's promo for Jones versus DC2. That was just where DC's looking at the all of his wins. You can kind of see his shadow, and he's looking at the wall of all his wins. And then there's that one picture that's clearly like off kilter, as if he almost punched the wall. And he's lost to Jones, and he's just sort of, you only see DC's shadow, and then the video starts, and it was just so good. I thought 214's was truly amazing.
Nice. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't remember the promos and stuff, off the top of my head. The fights that I was most excited for, obviously, Conor versus Nate won on short notice after the call out. All of that stuff got me super hyped.
The Conor Nate 2. The Conor Nate 2 promo was really good. You just reminded me.
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I like the promos of, some of our listeners like Axiom Films more so than the UFC ones, so they resonate with me a little bit more.
Thank you for saying that.
One Axiom Films just dropped, Cowboy vs. Conor, with Old Town Road in the background, is actually really, really good. That one got me pretty pumped too.
Yeah, and guys, if you're not subscribed to Axiom Films on YouTube, do yourself a favor and subscribe right now. I can't say too much about it, but Fight Geek knows what I'm talking about. Big things ahead for our friend Axiom. Very big things in the future. He's got a very bright future, and you're going to want to start following him immediately because he makes better trailers in the UFC without question.
Yeah, best trailers in the game, in my opinion. So
absolutely. And then one last shout out to one last promo. This was definitely made by the UFC for UFC 232. I believe the promo was called Welcome to the Fire, and it was about Jones' return against Gustafsson, and that was very well done.
For a guy who hates Jones, the two of your top promos ever include him.
It's true. It's true.
It's true. Okay.
All right, so I've got another question.
I'm going to go out one more before we go because I always give lame answers on these. UFC 100 with Brock and GSP, those guys. That was a big one for me. I don't know how many people were watching back at UFC 100. It seems like a lifetime ago, but I remember UFC 100 being a very, very big deal at the time.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely remember UFC 100, but do I remember the UFC 100 promo? Absolutely not. So I'll be honest, I don't remember it. It was great. I have to go back.
I don't remember it, scene for scene. I just remember how hyped I was for that card.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, got another question from Ali Ra. He says, how fucking good is it to have the UFC back in our lives, lads? From brutal KOs, insane submissions to the controversy, this is exactly what was missing from my life these last few weeks. What was your fuck yes, the UFC is fucking back moment from last night?
What was the moment? To me, it's like a whole day's event. I was actually telling my wife the night before. I was like, I'm just happy I had fights to watch all day, starting at in my neighborhood at 3:30. I think they started and run till almost 11 o'clock at night. So it's like a cultural thing for me. I have the whole afternoon to watch fights. It's just kind of a comforting feeling. And what better way to come back than with a wild card with all kinds of draws and crazy finishes and, grotesque injuries. I mean, that's MMA for you, right?
Absolutely. And the answer that I would have to go with, no surprise here, is, I'm obviously a big fan of Aspen Ladd's. Was very, very worried about her going to that third round against Yana Kunitskaya. Thought that Aspen's corner did a really good job of just telling her straight up how it was in between rounds. You're losing. You've got to get this done. There was zero BS thrown Aspen's way. She was her coaches made it very clear what she needed to do, and it lit a fire under her. And when she got that stoppage, I was yelling just as loud as she had been yelling when she was going for that finish with the ground and pound. So that was my moment.
It's a good moment.
Absolutely. You got one? Or should I go?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is from show regular Pat Tobin. That's at Pat_Tobin. Says, when he was an active fighter, Conor McGregor was good for the sport. Over the last few years, as an inactive fighter, he's been bad for the sport. If Conor is active in 2020, will he redeem his reputation or more of the same rubbish as the last few years? #AskSplitPod. And thank you, Pat, for using the hashtag. Why don't you start this one off, Fight Geek?
A lot to unpack there, honestly. But there's a part of me that no matter what Conor comes back and does, he will never reach the love and fandom that he originally had. I think he's just alienated people at this point in his career, and no matter what, they'll see him as a heel, no matter what. There was a time when Conor McGregor it was all positive. He's doing motivational movies and booking out, cruise ships to tell his life story. And it was all good and it was all golden. The storyline and the narratives have changed now, and the court of public opinion will never be the same, in my opinion. Now, if he comes back and wins a couple fights, will he be the big commodity that he's always been? I do believe that will be the case, obviously, but I don't think he will ever be as loved and beloved as he was initially. I think people have just been overexposed to him, and there's certain things out there that some people will never agree with.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking personally, as someone who used to be a really big diehard McGregor fan, and I admit it, and I know that's uncool, I find myself really deep down rooting against him for UFC 246 against Cowboy, now that that's official. Really find myself really deep down hoping Cowboy beats him. And I'm kind of shocked myself that I feel that way. So I think you mentioned a great point. But I do disagree with you here, Fight Geek. I don't think it's impossible for him to get all the way back. It's just extraordinarily improbable. I think are you telling me if he fights Khabib again and sleeps Khabib on the feet that he's not going to be back to where he was? I think people are quick to forgive and forget.
He's never going to be universally beloved the way he was when he was the first champ before the Floyd Mayweather circus, when he was a pure MMA superstar prospect that had achieved and fulfilled what he said he was going to do. It will never be that again. It will never be a living room full of people who have never watched MMA before tuning in to see some guy that's bigger than the game. You know what I mean? Now when you tune it in, it's a guy who has, the cloud of sexual assault over his head. It's a guy who hustles alcohol. It's a guy who has lost on multiple stages. We've seen him choked out twice. We've seen him stopped via strikes to Floyd Mayweather. So the air of invincibility for Conor, which was probably his biggest kind of aura in the beginning, was that he said he was going to do this, and he did it. He was the champ, and he stopped Aldo in 13 seconds. But those narratives have changed because we've seen the other side of the coin. So while he may be the biggest star in the UFC, he will never be beloved the way he was that night in New York. I just don't believe it.
Right. And then just really quickly, I have to ask this question. This is not a listener question, but I've got to ask, what do you make of McGregor versus Cowboy happening at 170? I was shocked by it, and I was even more shocked by Dana White a few days ago saying that, the reason they're fighting at welterweight, long story short, is McGregor doesn't want to make that cut to 55 twice, insinuating he very much wants Khabib after Cowboy if he wins, and he doesn't want to make that cut. If I'm a Conor McGregor fan, I am freaking out over that news because that means Conor's not taking the training camp seriously.
None of that makes sense. That's Dana lying to protect Conor's image.
What do you mean protecting his image? That's a humiliating. That makes Conor look horrendous.
Conor, it's all indications point to that Conor wants to go to 170 to fight Cowboy, prove he's not too small for Masvidal, and then have a BMF title with Masvidal. That's what Conor wants. It's clear as day.
Dana claims that's the third fight.
You know why Dana claims that? Because Ali and Khabib have already stated they're not going to give Conor a title. They're not going to. So whether or not you want to believe that Conor has this pull, Conor cannot get a title fight at 155 right now. He's not going to.
All right, you're making it sound like I want Conor to fight for the lightweight title.
No, I'm just saying.
I don't.
How many times does Ali and Khabib have to tweet or send a message that Conor needs to win multiple fights? Conor's a clown. Conor has no honor. They don't want to fight Conor. They don't take Conor seriously. I mean, you have to read between the lines here. Conor cannot get the Khabib fight next. Period.
I very much hope you're right, but I suspect that you're wrong. But I hope you're right.
Well, that's why, in my opinion, that's why Conor has found this alternate path, which is to fight Cowboy, a pseudo 170 guy, and then go on to fighting for fake belts like the BMF belt, because he knows he A, cannot get that Khabib fight, and B, if he does get that Khabib fight and loses again, isn't that basically the end of Conor's career?
Well, it's definitely the end of Conor's career if he loses to Cowboy.
Well, Conor keeps saying he's going to fight 3 times this year, so ideally that Khabib fight has to be on the back end. So he's not going to fight Khabib in the middle of his 3 fights this year because Khabib's probably going to beat him. That has to be a booking fight. And I'm just speaking hypothetically based on the mindset of what I think Conor has. So I could be completely wrong, but Conor probably thinks he's going to fight Cowboy, get a big name, easy win.
Yeah, he's not. He made a big mistake getting that at 170.
Become the BMF, and then as the BMF go down and fight Khabib for the 155-pound title, and thus, staying away from Gaethje and Tony, which are 2 fights Conor McGregor absolutely positively wants no part of.
Yeah, and the sad part here is, and tell me if you disagree, look, if Conor fights Masvidal's going to hurt him a lot worse than Gaethje would.
Do you think Conor McGregor wants to fight Justin Gaethje or Tony Ferguson ever?
Of course not. Of course. Right. Come on. We're speaking in real terms.
Fight him? Yeah, do you think he wants to fight him for a number 1 contender match?
Of course not.
Exactly.
But Conor made a big mistake here with this Cowboy at 170 because that was a.
Well, don't you think Cowboy at 170 is the safest option?
No.
Based on his other option was Justin at 155?
His other option was Cowboy at 155. That was by far the safest option. Playing at this welterweight fire, that could very easily be the difference in a serious defeat.
Do you think he took it because it was January 18th is 5 weeks away. So do you think because of the close time frame that's why they had to just kind of settle at 170, or do you think the 170 is part of the storyline to get that BMF fight versus Masvidal? Because I think that the Masvidal fight is what he's looking for, and he just figured Cowboy was a good way to prove he deserved it.
Yeah, I think that. Look, I think you're giving Conor a little too much credit on the whole planning. Like he's got this master plan. I think he's doing coke and making things up as he goes.
Well, if that's what he's doing, he's in big trouble.
Yep. I expect a very low-level Conor McGregor to show up at 246, and I think he will be defeated by Cowboy at 170, by the way. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see.
Interesting stuff, so let's keep it moving.
Okay, let's keep it moving. This is from...
I got one.
Go.
From Unsolicited Fight Picks.
Unsolicited Fight Picks, what up?
He says, including UFC 245, how many champions lose their belts in 2020 and who?
That is so hard to do in the top of my head.
So hard to project. Let's say in 2020.
Well, I've got at least one, right? Because I said Colby.
Stipe loses his belt.
Yeah, to DC?
Yeah, Stipe could lose his belt, so there's one.
At what, UFC 250 against DC?
Just for you, buddy. We'll throw that one out there. I could see Kamaru Usman definitely losing his title in 2020.
He's going to lose it in 2019.
Hey.
That's my opinion.
Let's see who else. I could definitely see, although Wei Li Zhang is the flavor of the month right now, I could definitely see her losing her title in 2020.
Henry Cejudo, flyweight for sure.
Yeah, I've been on record as saying I like Joey B's chances. So there's a couple options there. I mean, John Jones these days, until we see John Jones again, his last few fights, there's a lot of question marks out there about John Jones. And as he ages, each one, percentages say John Jones is going to lose.
Yeah.
So it's very intriguing to me to see who that man will be and when that will be, because I think that day's coming.
Jones is not the same man without the trips to the candy store.
Hey, still beat all your favorite 185ers.
Yeah, exactly. He's still calling out all the middleweights, fighting a lot of middleweights, barely beating a lot of middleweights. That's good for him. I guess that's impressive to some people. But okay, enough about that. The answer is, I think, a lot. I can't count them. I think that Usman will lose to Covington. I can't stand either of them in this, and Covington is particularly toxic. So guys, don't jump all over me on this. I'm picking who I think will win a fight. Okay, I'm not endorsing how Covington carries himself as an individual, but I do think he'll get that.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. Stop it.
Well,
Don't even joke about that.
Did you hear Colby come out and basically just pull the curtain on his whole shtick this week?
No, he did that?
You didn't? Yeah, it's on Twitter right now. He basically is explaining that he became a heel only because the UFC was not going to renew his contract in that Brazilian fight.
No, I didn't know that. That's yeah.
Did you hear him tell the whole story?
I don't know why he would do that prior to a fight.
It's so disappointing. It's like,
why would you do that? He's such a
make up your mind.
Gosh, he's the worst. Okay. So, quick question. Okay, this is from Reed at Daily Knockout. What's next for Corey Sandhagen, and do you like the Korean Zombie versus Frankie matchup better? With a potential win over a legend like Edgar, could have given him the title shot he is so close to. I think he's talking about Corey. So, we discussed this very briefly, but, I think...
Sandhagen versus Aljamain Sterling?
Is that, you're saying that's an idea you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is Aljo hurt? I know he had a surgery, right?
Or Sandhagen. I know this is based on the outcome, but Sandhagen could get the winner of Uriah versus Yan, and that makes a lot of sense too.
That does make a lot of sense. I think that Frankie Edgar is going to lose to Korean Zombie and then try to come back for Sandhagen, but I agree. I think it's going to, it's definitely not good for Corey Sandhagen that Edgar took this fight, and as we sort of already discussed, neither me nor Fight Geek really agrees with the Korean Zombie Edgar matchup. But okay, so do you have one or should I go?
Yeah, I got another one here from Proper Vegetables.
Proper Vegetables, what up?
He says is Mahmoud Muradov, someone you would see fighting for a title in the future. He has 13-fight win streak, and he just had an amazing knockout of, I think it's Trevor Smith. So what do you think?
Yeah, I did. I actually just, funnily enough, that's not a word. I just rewatched that fight this morning. And it was an impressive win, but no, I don't think that Muradov is good enough to be fighting for a title in the future.
Was it that impressive of a win? Or
I don't think
Trevor
so.
Smith just looked like he's walking in quicksand when he's trying to fight.
Right.
That guy, that was, it was a monstrous shot that he landed, but Smith has struggled to say the least in the UFC.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so this one, I've got a question from Jim Asoon. Guys, follow Jim Asoon, especially because for some reason his old account got deactivated. I have no idea why, but this is at Jim Asoon1. Give him a follow. He's the man. He says, Bryce Mitchell had a great night. Who's next for him? Ryan Hall is being thrown around. What y'all think? Hashtag AskSplitPod. Thank you for using the hashtag, Jim. I didn't even know that Ryan Hall is being thrown around. I think I mentioned earlier Ryan Hall is an idea for Bryce Mitchell. Fight Geek. What am I seeing the future?
I don't like that fight for Bryce Mitchell. I think Hall's a little too seasoned, a little further along in the game, a little higher up the ladder. So I would like to see Bryce Mitchell get someone else, personally.
Yeah. I
Bryce Mitchell's
like the Ryan Hall
prospect.
fight.
You got to build him.
I like the Ryan Hall fight more than you do, but
Ryan Hall Ryan Hall beats him via probably boring decision.
Maybe. I think you're not giving Bryce quite enough credit. But okay,
Bryce's strength is his grappling, and there's no way he's going to out-grapple Ryan Hall.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Do you have another question, or should I go? We've got a bunch this week.
Sure. I got one from Casual MMA Podcast.
What's up, Casual MMA Podcast?
He says, "Is Max the undisputed featherweight GOAT if he beats Volkanovski?" Go ahead.
No, but he's very close. I understand Aldo has more title defenses, and I think he has. I believe Aldo has 7 UFC title defenses, and then many counted as more than that because of his WEC title defenses prior to that. This would be Holloway's 4th title defense. But look, strength of schedule, Holloway's getting close quickly.
He is getting close. I do not think Volkanovski gets him over the top. I mean, the longevity of Aldo, and then when you take absolute apex peak Aldo and still put him against absolute apex peak Max, I still think Aldo's got him just by a hair right now.
I gotta push back on that one, man. Everyone said Aldo was totally fine and that the Conor loss was a fluke until Holloway beat him twice in a row.
That's an Aldo that had been the champion for 7 years or something. I mean, Conor didn't beat some, these guys who hold these titles forever and take everyone's best shot over and over and over again. I mean, but Max is getting there, and his strength of schedule is great, no doubt about it. His strength of schedule is great, but he hasn't quite been as dominant as Aldo for as long. So even though he has victories, which is crazy over Aldo, because Aldo's still freaking young. It's weird.
Holloway beat the crap out of Aldo twice. I mean, let's be clear. He beat the crap out of him.
Aldo's 30 fights into his career at that point, though. I mean, lots of wars.
Yeah, absolutely. So we agree.
It's so hard to gauge them, but I don't think there's any doubt they're the 2 greatest featherweights ever, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think Holloway's getting very close, but, let's talk in 2 or 3 more defenses, then I think for sure, but not yet. Yeah. Okay, so this one from Eduardo at Landa Crew. He says, if he loses on Saturday, is Colby's release inevitable? Considering him trashing Dana, being difficult to deal with, and the UFC releasing a lot of fighters this past year, hashtag AskSplitPod. Fascinating question. What do you think, Fight Geek?
I can't see that happening. He's too important to that division, I feel like. Lots of great fights. But, I mean, Bellator would love that.
Oh, yeah. And I know
Could you imagine Colby Covington versus Douglas Lima? That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. I don't know that Colby wants to go that route if he gets cut, though. I think he's openly said that WWE is what he wants if he gets cut.
Well, what more power to him? I mean, seems a little weird, but
well, Colby's more than a little weird, so it doesn't surprise me. But yeah. I don't think he would get cut either, Eduardo, for the record. I don't think he's going to get cut if he loses.
I don't really think they don't usually cut people coming off title shots unless
tell that to Liz Carmouche. Liz Carmouche just got cut.
But that was a horrible title fight. She only fights once per year, and who knows? I heard she made like $100,000 for that fight on a new contract, and I could see why they would not deem her worth that much per fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so do you have a question, or should I go?
Yeah, I got one from J.C. Moore. He says, does Joshua versus Wilder and or Fury ever happen? Yes or no?
Gosh. I was scared of something having to do with Anthony Joshua. I don't want to talk about Joshua Ruiz, too. You guys
Fine, I'll just say no, it will not happen because Joshua is a DAZN fighter. Wilder is a PBC. Actually, Wilder I think he's independent, and Fury's now a top-ranked fighter. So the likelihood of all three of them coming together anytime soon is very slim, in my opinion. They're all for other different promotions. That would be like, is Bader gonna fight, Stipe soon?
Exactly.
It's probably not going to happen.
Exactly.
So,
and I agree.
Second part of the question. Sorry.
Okay.
What is Overeem's overall legacy? Go ahead.
Overeem's overall legacy. Ooh, tough one.
Is he, in your opinion, a top 5 combat heavyweight of all time?
No, I just can't say yes, and I'm aware of all of
He's a kickboxing Strikeforce tournament champion.
See, look, yeah, man, but he never won the belt. He never won the UFC belt, and that will always be a big deal.
He has 45 wins.
He
fought
does.
Pride, Strikeforce, and UFC.
All wonderful tales, wonderful stories for the grandkids.
What will you remember him for? The brutal knockouts?
I'll remember him more for his losses and for his wins, if I'm being honest.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The brutal. I mean, obviously the Francis loss.
I mean, the lip. He just lost his friggin' lip this weekend. I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, he's easily a top 10 heavyweight of all time.
Oh, yeah.
No dispute about that. So that's his legacy. Incredibly durable. Reinvented himself after, as in Pride, I believe he was a tall, skinny 205er. Then he goes to, his Strikeforce where he was, Overeem, his kickboxing days also. Then he comes to UFC, beat up Brock Lesnar. Probably not a UFC Hall of Famer, but, I mean, MMA Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Very fair. I agree with that. This is from, we didn't ask the question from Jacob Powers, did we? No.
No.
At Jacob Powers 2. What up, Jacob? Says, if both Uriah Faber and Jose Aldo win this weekend, who has a better chance of fighting for the title or number 1 contender fight? And is Rosenstrike and Francis the fight to make for the next shot at the title for heavyweight? Okay, a lot to unpack there. 2 questions.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the first one? If
Jose Aldo figures out how to beat Marlon Moraes, yes, he can fight for a title. Sure, I don't see that happening.
Right.
But if he does do that, that would warrant a title shot, in my opinion. Jose Aldo is a former, all-time great champion. Beating someone like Marlon Moraes is more than a qualifying statement to fight for a title, in my opinion.
Yep, completely agree. Definitely agree with you there. So yeah, to answer your question, Jacob, I think that Aldo would definitely get that title shot off of a win against Moraes, in my humble opinion, but I don't see it happening. I just don't see Aldo winning the Marlon fight, so it's hard to look at it too in depth. But great question. Thank you for the question. This one,
and then the second part was Rosenstrike versus Francis. Is that the fight to make for the next shot at the title?
I don't think so. I mean, we were just talking about how Rosenstrike didn't even look particularly efficient or impressive this weekend. So, I don't think he's getting the Ngannou fight.
How about Rosenstrike versus
Greg Hardy?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but
I'd like it.
I mean, Greg Hardy's coming off a loss. We're probably going to see something like Alistair Overeem versus Greg Hardy's more likely.
Oh, geez. Ugh, darn it.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
It is. It actually sounds like a UFC St. Petersburg main event or something crazy, dude. All right, let's keep it moving on that note.
Yes.
I got one from Juice Jackson. What's up, Juice?
Juice, what up?
He says, what is the best fight to make for Jairzinho Rosenstrike? We've gone over this a bunch of times, but what do you think the best fight to make is?
Greg Hardy. Because I think Greg Hardy will lose, and I want Greg Hardy to lose.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's keep it moving. MMA by Milliken asks
What
Split
up?
Pod, what should be done with Cynthia Calvillo and other athletes who constantly miss weight? We touched on this a little bit.
Cut her.
I mean, I think if it could be a 3-strike rule for, being forced, maybe 2 strikes being forced to the weight class up, 3 strikes you get cut. Something like that.
Yep, absolutely.
Unless you're really important.
I totally agree with that. This is from Hype Man Jake. Love Hype Man Jake, very loyal listener, at Jake Full Mount. And he says, what round does Tito finish John Jones?
I love this question.
The first minute of the first round. No, I don't know. He never does, obviously.
Would you watch that fight?
I would, but guys, it'll never happen because Jones won't fight any heavyweight, including even a humiliating one like Tito Ortiz. So.
Yeah, I don't know. What'd you think of Tito's performance?
I mean, it was what it was. Tito got an easy, quick garbage win against a garbage opponent who's a has-been.
Okay.
What did you think?
I mean, Tito's one thing he does have is he's still in shape, but he moves like a dinosaur. He's so slow. But if he wants to keep booking fights versus guys, that lack of threat, I think that's what you're going to see.
Yep, absolutely.
It was bizarre to say the least, but the one thing people give Tito such a hard time, Tito's a lifelong martial artist at this point. I mean, he knows how to wrap up a rear naked choke and a Kimura and all that stuff. So, it's pretty one-sided.
Yep, definitely. This question is from Mr. B. Mr. B! What up, Mr. B? One of my favorites. He says, I'm not trying to jinx the UFC 245 results, so I'll ask these two questions instead. 1, do you think Edgar honestly manages to make it to both Korean Zombie and Sandhagen as he's planning to? And 2, with his win this weekend, who do y'all match Rob Font up against next? #AskSplitPod. Why don't you go first?
Okay, this is a tough one. Let's say I don't think Edgar's going to make it to that Sandhagen fight. I just think it's too tight of a turnaround, and too many things can happen. You could, sprain your ankle, check a leg kick, get poked in the eye. I mean, there's a million things that could happen that could keep him from being able to turn around and be in training again. Also, the two different weight cuts. I know Frankie's probably pretty close to 145 now, but cutting to 145 and then turning right around and cutting to 135 may not be the easiest thing to do. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. Just seems a little dramatic. And what would I want to see done with Rob Font next? You got any names there?
No, that's why I pushed the question to you, jerk. Thanks
I got all the same names. I know Cody Garbrandt said he has someone coming soon. Cody versus Rob, or no, Cody's 135. Excuse me, 145. Pull up the list.
Yeah. We've discussed this a little bit already on this episode. Ryan Hall, Arnold Allen, Mirsad Bektic. That's 15, 14, 13.
He's better than all of them. Let's keep moving.
12, Shane Burgos. 11, Calvin Kattar. 10, Josh Emmett.
Josh Emmett's booked, I think, versus someone.
What about Calvin Kattar? How about that? There's a name that hasn't come up yet. What about Calvin?
They're both sluggers. Rob Font versus Calvin Kattar sounds good.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. So that's my answer is Calvin.
Sure, I'll take that one too.
Okay. So we've got one more question from Kairos. I wanted to save that one for last because it's an audio question. Any others before that?
I don't think so. I think that does it.
Damn it.
Okay. Hold on 1 second, and here's Kairos's question.
What's going on, guys? Do you think that referees should be held more accountable for their actions? We saw Dan Miragliotta basically sentence Stefan Struve to death, and he didn't have to do all that. He could have just won by disqualification, or he could have taken a no contest at the very least. But Dan insisted that he continue fighting because it's 10 seconds left. What could happen? And he got KO'd. That's what happened. And a similar case where I saw with Kennedy Zichuku facing off against Darko Stoysic, and he ended up getting kicked in his groin 3 times prior. He won the fight, though, because he opted to continue, but he could have just taken his DQ win or maybe a no contest. I think that referees should not have so much power and influence, and if they do make a mistake, they should be held accountable. What do you guys think?
Yeah, awesome question from Kairos there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we've touched on it quite a bit, but I agree. I feel like Dan's job in that instance is to relay information, how much time you have, whether or not a point has been deducted, and whether or not he's going to be bringing the doctor in. I don't see a whole lot of reason for much more discussion outside of that. Do you?
No, I don't. Again, I think it's a really hard job being an MMA ref. So I'm a little bit more lenient with Dan this weekend than I think a lot of others are. I agree it wasn't a good night for him, no doubt about that. But I think he's in a tough position. I think in his own way he's trying to help Struve. I know people say, well, he shouldn't be helping a fighter. I understand. There were extenuating circumstances. He was kicked very badly below the belt twice in a row. I think Dan's intentions were pure, but look, I get it. I get it. I get the backlash.
I think his intentions were actually admirable as well, and I think he wanted what was best for Struve. I just don't think it's fair to put him in that position.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not he should be punished, the thing about this is the athletic commissions control the referees, not the UFC. Now, the UFC has gone above and beyond in like Mario Yamasaki situations, and where they've said they do not want him working their fight cards. So, outside of making a formal petition not to have Dan Miragliotta ref UFC fights, I'm not sure what they can do because they're separate organizations. So I'm just not sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. This wraps up the episode. We will be back to recap UFC 245 next week. As well as look ahead to the final fight card of the year with the Korean Zombie taking on Frankie Edgar. With that, Fight Geek, take us away.
All right, guys, as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at The Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude, and we're at Split_podcast. It's 4 words. The Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.